Hi, I'm Bob Airy, two-time Stanley Cup champ. You're watching the Power Play Break, the place to talk about pucks.
Hey everybody, it's Chris Riley again for the Power Play Break, the place to talk about pucks. Today we are joined by one of hockey's legendary family members, Mark Howe. Mark, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
Let's go back to your early experiences in playing hockey as a kid. What do you remember most from the time you started?
I remember, I've seen pictures anyway of me. Dad used to put me on the ice at the old Olympia, and what he used to do is put a chair on the ice. And I'd be able to hold on to the chair if I felt I could use the chair to pick myself back up. I was 2 years old. I do remember at 4 playing outdoors, my first league, and played outdoor at Butzel Arena in Detroit. And I remember when it used to snow and you had to stop playing, shoveling in between. And it was a lot of fun. It was between that and mom and dad making rinks out in the yard. That's where I learned to skate.
Were you pushed into it, or was it something you wanted to try, or mom and dad just said, hey, let's see if he likes it?
No. It's something, it's like I still scout today.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm doing it is because I love it. I mean, from the time, I think as far back as I can remember, I love to skate. I remember one time, Dad was headed down to the Olympia in Detroit, and it was in the dead of winter, and I wanted to skate. Well, there was a golf course called Rackham Golf Course, and he didn't want me skating on lakes in case you fell through. But there'd been snow and then a thaw, and there was 2 or 3 holes where it made almost like a big pond. But Dad dropped me off. He came back maybe 2.5 hours later. Well, it was about 15 or 20 below. Well, my brother and a couple other friends that were skating with me, they went into the clubhouse of the golf course because they were the only smart one. I stayed there for 2.5 hours till I saw Dad's car go by, and nobody else would stay. And by the time I got to the car, I think I almost had frostbite in my hands and feet. But the love of the game just overtakes all that, and then the pain and everything else came later. And even when I played till I was 40, I probably spent 2-3 days a week in therapy for my back and different things, and everybody say, why do you still play? And you play because you love the game, and it's part of you, and it's always been a part of me.
What was the best part at that time in the 50s, playing hockey in the Detroit area and in Michigan? I mean, not everyone was playing hockey back then, and you're at a time when the Red Wings were on the rise. Your dad, Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey, was leading the team to Stanley Cups. I mean, it must have been an exciting time for you as a kid.
Yeah, what I remember most about Dad and with the Red Wings is mostly in the 60s. I think Dad broke Rocker Restored's goal scoring record. I think pretty sure it was 63. And I was at the game, and it was a standing ovation for about 15, 20 minutes when he tied it. And then 3 weeks later, I think to the day when he broke the record, both games were against the Canadians. And for me, I was afforded opportunities because I would go to the games with Dad, and I'd run around the press box. It's like everybody knew me in the building. I was a little 8, 9-year-old kid running around just doing my own thing. And at the end of the game, I would leave and I'd run downstairs because the team used to walk through the main corridor.
Okay.
And so the players, all the fans could say hi, touch all the players, and I would go and stand right next to the door. And if it was a bad game, Dad used to give it you can't go in the locker room. And but if things went well, he'd put his hand out, I'd grab his hand, I'd go in the room, and then the coach would come in, and I'd be hanging with normally Norm Allman and Alex DeVecchio, sat on both sides of Dad. So I used to be between them, and then every once in a while I'd go run into the back, and I'd grab a stick and I'd saw a stick off and tape it up, and then I'd run back out. Dad would sit and sign every single autograph, so sometimes we'd be there a good hour. And I'd run out and I'd make a tape ball, and I'd shoot. They had the stairs going up to the balcony, and I'd sit and shoot tape balls for an hour. And I thought it was great that Dad signed every autograph, but it was what was great for me was I knew all the players. I was even a stick boy for some of the visiting teams. Every time Chicago used to come into town, that was the day of the big curves with Bobby Hull and
The banana curves,
Makita.
those guys were experimenting.
They were.
No rules.
You're only allowed an inch and a half or 2 inches, whatever. I mean, the thing was like this. But Bobby always used to bring me a half a dozen sticks. And the fear was the teams that I was playing on in Detroit, I would bring those sticks to practice, and everybody be trying them. Well, obviously I had no control, so you'd wind up, you'd be lucky to hit the red line on the corner of the rink, but it was, so I mean, I had a special childhood. Then as we got into the late 60s, I was even able to take part in some of the practices, and actually they had me up at training camp in Port Huron one year, so so growing up in Detroit around the Red Wings with the great coaches of Bill Gadsby, Doug Barkley, some of the guys, they gave me a lot of opportunities.
Any of those guys influence you? Any tips? I mean, did they say to you, hey, Mark, try this. This might work for you. Or they see something in practice. I know at times that you would go to the Olympia to practice by yourself, and somebody would, give you popcorn and a hot dog and a soda. But did any of the players, that would come in visiting-wise or anything, would you ever ask them an opinion on something? Hey, I'm having trouble with this in a game. What do you think? Or...
No, I think because every game, I would go to every Red Wing game that I could, as long as if I wasn't playing a game that night, I went to the games. And what Dad used to tell me in the car sometimes was, like if they were playing Chicago, he says, instead of just watching the game, when Bobby's on the ice, watch Bobby, watch what he does. And, and you would watch how he would go deeper, he would come late, he would do different things to, and somebody's, usually Brian Watson was shadowing him, so you're watching him try to, how to elude his checker and get open. And then you had other players who played in Detroit a long time, Nick Levitt. And Nick was a real good two-way player. And Nick used to get his 20 goals a year, not get scored against. He was your prototypical winger back in the day. So I would learn how to do this, how to do that, and try to play different games. So basically I learned through my own eyes, but my dad told me basically how to learn through my own eyes.
How old were you when you started to realize at this age that things are coming easier to me playing hockey? It's a little bit easier. My friends are struggling, Did you start to notice tendencies when you're like 8 or 9, or were you just everyone was having a good time?
No, I think we all had a good time. I knew I was a pretty good player. I would say by the time I was 10. I think it was, I was playing junior B hockey at 14, and Tier 2 when I was 15. But the thing was, when I was 15, most of the guys in the league were 18 and 19, and I was leading the league in scoring. So, and the couple years before, I always played 3, 4, or 5 years ahead of what my age group was. And I was lucky. I mean, I ended up playing at about 190 pounds, but I was 190 pounds when I was 14 years old. So back in the day, that was big for back around 1970. So I had the size where I could play against older guys. Yeah, I think I got intimidated a little bit. I know when we, the 1 year with the Junior Wings, we played up in Charlottetown, PEI, in the Eastern Final of the Tier 2 League. And we're playing against guys, they had full beards, they had their wives and children at the game. And I remember swearing at the ref, and the ref told me where to go, and I was like, wow, nobody ref told me that. So, but yeah, so I mean, it was, so I think maybe I was a little immature being a 14-year-old, but in that influence, I think a lot of what I did in other sports too, and I love playing other sports. I love golf. I played football, I ran track, I wrestled, played baseball. I did a lot of things at school, and then even when I got to high school, that's when I started to pull back, because when I was 14, I knew I had a real good shot at being a good NHL player, and I didn't want to, and the chance of getting injured in any sport is the same as hockey, but I said if I didn't want to damage my chances by having an injury in another sport. And so I ended up cutting back from a lot of the other sports.
Talk about, I read this in your book that you wrote, Growing Up in the Shadow of Your Dad, denting the garage and breaking windows in the house. That must have been like you started to realize, wow, I can do this at home. Now I got to put this into the game. I mean, was that a lot of fun? Did mom yell at you, dad yell at you for doing stuff? Or
Well, yeah,
was it a typical house?
usually Dad was gone, so I always, I never did graduate from high school, but I always consider myself a good student. I think my grade point average was like 3.6, 3.7. And, but what I used to do, I used to stay after school, do whatever homework I had, and then I would run home, usually about 3/4 of a mile to a mile. As soon as I got home, I played hockey in the driveway all day until I got called for dinner, and then played all night. And then in the wintertime, I actually ended up building rinks in the front yard close enough to where I could plug in an electric cord. And so I could play at night because that was our decorations. I would plug in the lights around the thing, but it was, but yeah, I mean, and whether I was down at the Olympia, being on the ice for 8 hours and just shooting pucks, or if I couldn't get down there and I'm in the driveway by myself, that's all I did. It's usually a tennis ball. Well, a tennis ball in the winter gets a little hard. So, but and I was one of those people, instead of just hitting the middle of the 6x4, I wanted every shot to be, you know,
Pinpoint
that
accuracy.
1 inch straight inside the post. And one too many times I'd be missing the net, and so I put the net there, and I had the garage door in the back. My mom finally got tired of it one day, and she said, "Enough's enough." She said, "Up with the garage door." I said, "Okay." And I swear, the very first shot I took, I went and it just missed the net. And without thinking, well, back at the far end of the garage is the full glass window. And it goes into the kitchen, through the hallway, through the dining area, into the living area, and on the far end of the house there was a sofa. And sure enough, everything went well. I found my ball, and it was underneath the sofa at the far end. Right after that, Mom said, "Well, put the garage back down again." And probably the worst thing I did was I was playing in the front yard one night. Dad was out of town, and we had the big picture window. I took a shot, and I think it ricocheted off the post or something at the rink, and went over and hit the picture window. It broke the picture window about 9:30 at night. So I think all total, I broke. It was somewhere around 12 or 13 panes of glass at the house, which I guess that's the cost of being a parent of a budding athlete. Yeah.
We'll have more with Mark after this.